Hey everybody, we're with Glenn and we've got some breaking news today. First up, before we get into that, Glenn, can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm the CEO of Mighty Earth. We're a global environmental campaign organization. We do a lot of work to break the link between deforestation and agriculture. We also work on ocean conservation and to tackle climate change.
Great. Well, as I said, thank you so much for reaching out to Plant-Based News. Let's get straight into the main story, the breaking story, which is about Burger King. Over the last few days, they've been everywhere. They've been exposed. They've been indicted. Can you just talk about the report that you guys have put together and just tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. Well, what we did was we knew that Burger King's chicken, pork, and hamburgers were raised on soybeans. And some of the soybeans that they're using come from suppliers like Cargill and Bunge. These are the big agricultural traders that sit astride the global food system. And what we did was we went to the agricultural frontier where those companies are buying soy and in many cases building infrastructure into the frontier forest landscapes. And we used satellite analysis to pinpoint the areas where there was a risk of deforestation. And then we sent teams on the ground to 28 locations across the Brazilian Cerrado, which is the savanna forest landscape that really is the agricultural frontier in Brazil, as well as the Bolivian Amazon basin, to see what was happening. Those aren't the only places where Burger King is likely to be sourcing soy. Paraguay and Argentina are also on the agricultural frontier. And even the United States, these big ag companies are actually tearing down the last remaining native prairie at a terrific pace. We have an investigation underway into what is the impact of meat consumption on the last prairie in the United States as well. And we're going to publish that later this year. But what we found where we went in both Brazil and Bolivia was that Burger King suppliers are sourcing from producers engaged in massive burning of these last rainforests and native ecosystems. It's happening in jaguar and sloth habitat and even the habitat of rare giant anteaters. And it is imperiling the water supply of people in Latin America. So you have these big international agribusinesses. In this case, the ones we focused on were actually American ones, going into Brazil and Bolivia, turning their ecosystems into monoculture soy plantations for export to global meat markets.
Is that Burger King's fault, though, or is it the suppliers? And how do the two kind of intersect? I mean, you've really put the spotlight on the supply chain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where can you place the blame is essentially my question.
Well, they all have a lot of responsibility for this. I mean, Burger King is ultimately the one buying and selling the burgers and chicken sandwiches and bacon that's contributing to the problem. So it's up to Burger King and other consumer-facing companies to provide products that are produced in a responsible way, that are free of deforestation and other forms of environmental and social damage. But Cargill and Bunge and the other soy traders have that responsibility too. They should be selling products to the global markets that are produced in an environmental and socially responsible way. Our investigation shows that Cargill and Bunge aren't. For one of the reasons we focused on, I should say, Burger King is not the only company that has Cargill and Bunge and other irresponsible actors in their supply chain. However, it has been one of the worst in terms of its performance on these issues. It scored a 0 on the Union of Concerned Scientists scorecard of fast food chains' policies and practices. It also is completely opaque. It's not providing any information on where its food comes from, where the animal feed that's used to raise the livestock that ultimately goes into chicken sandwiches and Bacon Kings, etc., come from. Look, McDonald's isn't perfect, Subway isn't perfect, KFC isn't perfect, but they are all doing a lot more. And actually, McDonald's has joined with Carrefour, the big French supermarket chain, as well as three of the other big soy traders in calling for a ban on deforestation. So,
do you think that's
Cargill,
enough?
well, I hope that plus our report and the campaign that we're doing around the world does create enough pressure to create change.
Honestly, though, do you think change is happening quickly enough?
Well, of course, if it was, it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, the irony of all of this is that these same companies have had enormous success in reducing deforestation. So in 2006, due to a campaign like the one that we're doing now, that one mostly from Greenpeace, pressure on McDonald's and supermarkets in Europe caused the big soy traders to institute a moratorium on deforestation. They said, we're not going to buy from any grower who engages in deforestation. And it worked. There is effectively no deforestation for soybeans in the Brazilian Amazon. The tragedy is that they have continued to buy from producers engaged in deforestation in the Brazilian Cerrado, in Bolivia, in Argentina, and Paraguay, and in the United States. There's no reason for it. They've shown that they can expand agriculture without sacrificing these native ecosystems. I think it's worth saying that meat production and consumption has a really high negative impact on the environment, no matter what. It is the amount of land it uses, the amount of water, the amount of energy far exceeds what a vegetarian diet does. We acknowledge that, and we certainly strongly encourage people to reduce the amount of meat in their diet. But we are also engaged in this very urgent race to save the last native ecosystems and stop climate change before it gets even more out of control. And we do know that these companies can meet global demand for meat while protecting native ecosystems and the rights of indigenous communities.
Yeah, that just brings up the point I was going to raise. You said in the response in your report, the solution could be to grow more soy in cattle on less land. Surely that shouldn't be the solution. If you look at the FAO's report, if you look at the UN's report, surely the signalling and the messaging should be to get people to reduce animal product consumption rather than to buy products from factory farms.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that we need to do both, I guess. I mean, I think there's, we've been really encouraged that meat consumption in the United States has actually declined substantially, especially of red meat over the last 50 years. So like beef consumption has declined something like 40 or 50%. And even in the last 9 years, or in the last decade, we've seen a 9% decline in overall meat consumption in the United States, which is really encouraging. And we see this accelerating, actually, that there's more interest in people reducing meat or even eliminating meat from their diets. And that is a huge part of the solution. At the same time, I don't think overnight we're going to turn everybody into vegans or even people who only eat meat a few times a week. And so we are, in the interim, trying to protect these great rainforests and the creatures that live in them and the communities that depend on them.
Yeah, so you're basically saying there isn't one clear solution, and on paper there might be, but in practice it's a little bit more complicated than that, and you're trying to go down both avenues.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there is one clear solution is for these companies not to destroy the rainforest or other native ecosystems. They can do that today and not sacrifice their growth. So that's clear, that's easy, that's low-hanging fruit. And the other solution is maybe more on the individual side. It's about what you eat. And if you don't, I mean, one thing is if you don't support the kind of deforestation that we exposed, there's a few things you can do. One, reduce or eliminate the meat that you're consuming in your diet. Number two, choose products and restaurants and supermarkets that are taking steps to source responsibly. So, for somebody who occasionally does get a craving for a Big Mac or whatever, try to go to a restaurant that's a little more responsible. And then third, people should take action to actually pressure these companies. So we've been volunteers with our organization have been having protests across the United States. We're going to do some in Europe, some in Brazil, outside of Burger King's, going in, talking to the managers at each Burger King and telling them why they're concerned about the impacts of their food. We've been having these events, and it's been we've had totally different reactions. I mean, some of the staff there are hostile, but we've also had more often very friendly receptions. And one guy in Austin, who was the manager of Burger King, he said that he grew up in Latin America, and he himself had seen vast deforestation in his local community, and so he was enthusiastic about our work. And I think having that kind of human to human connection, if people want, on our website at mightyearth.org/mystery meet, you can go and take action and sign up for updates and send a message directly to Burger King.
Is that the best place for people to contact you?
Yeah. If you go to mightyearth.org, people can get in touch with me directly or other members of our team, and send a message to these decision makers. We do know that already that kind of action, both online and then people getting offline and going to the stores and weighing in, is having an impact. The soy traders are meeting next week to discuss this report and how they're going to respond, and that they are discussing this at the CEO level. So this kind of activity really can make a difference. And these companies have changed in the past, and we just hope that they'll do so this time.
Just lastly, because I know you're tight on time, thank you so much for reaching out to me, by the way. I really, really appreciate it. What's been really promising for me is like the mainstream media's reaction to this. Were you expecting the response that you guys have had?
Well, we've been working hard on it for months.
Yeah, right.
I was pleased. We got a huge story in the New York Times, and Hiroko Tabuchi, the reporter, did an awesome job. And one of the things that we really try to do is capture in a visually compelling way the impacts of people's food choices. And so, the videos and photos on our website, mightyearth.org, I recommend people look at it. They're beautiful, tragic,
damning, very, very damning.
Yeah, and damning. That's right. So when you have compelling images, I think media will follow. I think it's hard to refute it also. I mean, we haven't heard really from Cargill and Bunge that they're saying, no, what you found is incorrect. Unfortunately, with Cargill in particular, they're still saying they're going to keep deforesting until 2030. I hope that this pressure, though, changes that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for reaching out to Plant-Based News, and
thank you for the great work that you do as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good luck with the new report, and any results, we'd love to publish them, and any new reports and stuff. So just drop me an email. I'd really appreciate that.
Okay. Cool.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.